I've earned 30 plus certifications, and I'm here to guide you to success on your exam. Welcome to the Ultimate AZ-801 Exam Masterclass. Are you ready to crack the AZ-801 exam in one go? You're in the right place. In this session, we'll arm you with powerful insights and hand-picked questions that can make all the difference in your exam performance. We've scanned the web using intelligent crawlers to gather the most critical and high-impact questions, all compiled into one powerful PDF resource. You can download it from the link in the description. Not only will we explore these must-practice questions, but we'll also share real exam experiences and pro tips to give you that competitive edge. Let's dive into the key questions that could shape your success. Question 1. You need to meet the technical requirements for Cluster 3. What should you include in the solution? A. Enable integration services on all the virtual machines. B. Configure a fault domain for the cluster. C. Add a failover cluster role. Correct answer, C. Add a failover cluster role. Explanation. Adding a failover cluster role ensures high availability. It allows workloads to automatically fail over between nodes. Question 2. You need to back up Server 4 to meet the technical requirements. What should you do first? A. Deploy Microsoft Azure Backup Server MABS. B. Configure Windows Server Backup. C. Install the Microsoft Azure Recovery Services (MARS) agent. D. Configure Storage Replica. Correct answer, C. Install the Microsoft Azure Recovery Services (MARS) agent. Explanation. The MARS agent backs up files, folders, and system state directly to Azure. It is the required first step before configuring Azure Backup. Question 3. You are planning the migration of Archive 1 to support the on-premises migration plan. What is the minimum number of IP addresses required for the node and cluster roles on Cluster 3? A2, B3, C4, D5. Correct answer, B. 3. Explanation. Each cluster needs IPs for both nodes and the cluster role. Cluster 3 requires a minimum of 3 IP addresses. Question 4. You are evaluating technical requirements for Cluster 2. What is the minimum number of Azure Site Recovery providers that you should install? A1, B4, C12, D16. Correct answer, B. 4. Explanation. Each Hyper-V host requires its own Azure Site Recovery provider. With 4 hosts, you need 4 providers installed. Question 5. You are remediating the firewall security risks to meet the security requirements. What should you configure to reduce the risks? A. A Group Policy Object (GPO). B. Adaptive Network Hardening in Microsoft Defender for Cloud. C. A Network Security Group (NSG) in Sub 1. D. An Azure Firewall Policy. Correct answer, A. A Group Policy Object (GPO). Explanation. A GPO ensures consistent firewall and security settings across all servers. It reduces risks by enforcing centralized configuration. Question 6. You are planning the deployment of Microsoft Sentinel. Which type of Microsoft Sentinel data connector should you use to meet the security requirements? A. Threat Intelligence TAXII. B. Azure Active Directory. C. Microsoft Defender for Cloud. D. Microsoft Defender for Identity. Correct answer, D. Microsoft Defender for Identity. Explanation. Microsoft Defender for Identity detects suspicious activities in Active Directory. Its data connector feeds those alerts into Microsoft Sentinel. Question 7. You plan to deploy the Azure Monitor Agent to 100 on-premises servers that run Windows Server. Which parameters should you provide when you install the agent? A. The client ID and the secret of an Azure Service Principal. B. The name and the access key of an Azure storage account. C. A connection string for an Azure SQL database. D. The ID and the key of an Azure Log Analytics workspace. Correct answer D. The ID and the key of an Azure Log Analytics workspace. Explanation. The agent must connect to a Log Analytics workspace. The workspace ID and key authenticate the data flow. Question 8. You have 5 Azure virtual machines. You need to collect performance data and Windows event logs from the virtual machines. The data collected must be sent to an Azure storage account. What should you install on the virtual machines? A. The Azure Connected Machine Agent. B. The Azure Monitor Agent. C. The Dependency Agent. D. The Telegraph Agent. E. The Azure Diagnostics Extension. Correct answer E. The Azure Diagnostics Extension. Explanation. The Azure Diagnostics Extension collects performance and event data. It can send this data directly to an Azure storage account. Question 9. You have an Azure virtual machine named VM1. You install an application on VM1 and then restart the virtual machine. After the restart, you get the following error message. Boot failure. Reboot and select proper boot device or insert boot media in selected boot device. You need to mount the operating system disk offline from VM1 to a temporary virtual machine to troubleshoot the issue. Which command should you run in Azure CLI? A. AZ-VM repair create. B. AZ-VM boot diagnostics enable. C. AZ-VM capture. D. AZ-VM disk attach. Correct answer A. AZ-VM repair create. Explanation. The AZ-VM repair create command attaches the OS disk to a repair VM. This allows troubleshooting while VM1 remains offline. Question 10. You have an Azure subscription. The subscription contains a virtual machine named VM1 that runs Windows Server and uses Azure Disk Encryption. You need to identify which Azure Key Vault stores the encryption keys for VM1. The solution must minimize administrative effort. Which PowerShell command should you run? A. Get AZ Key Vault key. B. Get AZ Key Vault. C. Get AZ VM disk encryption status. D. Get AZ disk encryption set. Correct answer C. Get AZ VM disk encryption status. Explanation. The Get AZ VM disk encryption status command shows the encryption settings of a VM. It directly identifies the key vault used for the encryption keys. Question 11. You have an Azure virtual machine named VM1. Crash dumps for a process named Process1 are enabled for VM1. When Process1.exe on VM1 crashes, a technician must access the memory dump files on the virtual machine. The technician must be prevented from accessing the virtual machine. To what should you provide the technician access? A. An Azure file share. B. An Azure Log Analytics workspace. C. An Azure Blob storage container. D. A managed disk. Correct answer C. An Azure Blob storage container. Explanation. Crash dump files can be exported to blob storage for secure access. This allows the technician to analyze dumps without VM access. Question 12. Your on-premises network is connected to Azure. You have an Azure subscription. The subscription contains a virtual machine named VM1 that runs Windows Server. You need to identify the latency between the on-premises network and VM1. Which Azure Network Watcher settings should you use? A. IP Flow Verify. B. Connection Monitor. C. VPN Troubleshoot. D. Connection Troubleshoot. Correct answer B. Connection Monitor. Explanation. Connection Monitor measures latency, packet loss, and reachability. It provides continuous visibility into connectivity between on-premises and Azure VMs. Question 13. You have an Azure virtual machine named VM1 that runs Windows Server. The operating system on VM1 fails to fully initialize its network stack, and you cannot establish a network connection. You need to establish an interactive shell session. What should you use? A. Azure Bastion. B. Serial Console. C. Just-in-time, JIT, VM Access. Correct answer B. Serial Console. Explanation. The Serial Console provides out-of-band VM access. It works even when the network stack is unavailable. Question 14. You have an Azure virtual machine named VM1 that has the web server, IIS, server role installed. VM1 hosts a critical line of business, LOB, application. After the security team at your company deploys a new security baseline to VM1, users begin reporting that the application is unresponsive. You suspect that the security baseline has caused networking issues. You need to perform a network trace on VM1. What should you do? A. From VM1, run netstat. B. From Performance Monitor on VM1, create a data collector set. C. From the Azure portal, configure the diagnostic settings for VM1. D. From the Azure portal, configure the performance diagnostic settings for VM1. Correct answer D. From the Azure portal, configure the performance diagnostic settings for VM1. Explanation. Performance diagnostics in the Azure portal captures network traces. This helps troubleshoot connectivity issues caused by new configurations. Question 15. You have 3 servers named Server 1, Server 2, and Server 3 that run Windows Server and have the Hyper-V server role installed. Server 1 hosts an Azure Migrate appliance named Migrate 1. You plan to migrate virtual machines to Azure. You need to ensure that any new virtual machines created on Server 1, Server 2, and Server 3 are available in Azure Migrate. What should you do? A. On the network that has Migrate 1 deployed, deploy a Win server. B. On Migrate 1, set the startup type of the computer browser service to automatic. C. On the DNS server used by Migrate 1, create a global name zone. D. On Migrate 1, add a discovery source. Correct answer D. On Migrate 1, add a discovery source. Explanation. A discovery source ensures newly created VMs are detected by Azure Migrate. This keeps the inventory synchronized. Question 16. You have 5 Azure virtual machines. You have a dedicated Azure storage account to collect performance data. You need to send the collected data directly to the Azure storage account. What should you install on the virtual machines? A. The Azure Connected Machine Agent. B. The Telegraph Agent. C. The Dependency Agent. D. The Azure Monitor Agent. E. The Azure Diagnostics Extension. Correct answer E. The Azure Diagnostics Extension. Explanation. The Diagnostics Extension sends performance counters and logs directly to a storage account. It is the right choice for this requirement. Question 17. You have a server named Server 1 that runs Windows Server. You need to ensure that only specific applications can modify the data in protected folders on Server 1. Solution. From virus and threat protection, you configure controlled folder access. Does this meet the goal? A. Yes. B. No. Correct answer A. Yes. Explanation. Controlled folder access restricts which applications can change files in protected folders. This meets the security goal. Question 18. You have a server named Server 1 that runs Windows Server. You need to ensure that only specific applications can modify the data in protected folders on Server 1. Solution. From virus and threat protection, you configure tamper protection. Does this meet the goal? A. Yes. B. No. Correct answer B. No. Explanation. Tamper protection prevents changes to Defender settings. It does not control application access to protected folders. Question 19. You have a server named Server 1 that runs Windows Server. You need to ensure that only specific applications can modify the data in protected folders on Server 1. Solution. From App and Browser Control, you configure the exploit protection settings. Does this meet the goal? A. Yes. B. No. Correct answer B. No. Explanation. Exploit protection mitigates exploit techniques. It does not enforce application-based folder access restrictions. Question 20. You have an Azure virtual machine named VM1 that runs Windows Server. You plan to deploy a new line of business (LOB) application to VM1. You need to ensure that the application can create child processes. What should you configure on VM1? A. Microsoft Defender Credential Guard. B. Microsoft Defender Application Control. C. Microsoft Defender Smart Screen. D. Exploit Protection. Correct answer D. Exploit Protection. Explanation. Exploit protection settings control how processes behave. Configuring it allows the application to create child processes. Question 21. You have 100 Azure virtual machines that run Windows Server. The virtual machines are on board to Microsoft Defender for Cloud. You need to shut down a virtual machine automatically if Microsoft Defender for Cloud generates the anti-malware disabled in the virtual machine alert. What should you use in Microsoft Defender for Cloud? A. A logic app. B. A workbook. C. A security policy. D. Adaptive network hardening. Correct answer A. A logic app. Explanation. Logic apps can automate responses to Defender alerts. They allow custom actions like shutting down a VM when a threat is detected. Question 22. You have a Microsoft Sentinel deployment and 100 Azure Arc-enabled on-premises servers. All the Azure Arc-enabled resources are in the same resource group. You need to onboard the servers to Microsoft Sentinel. The solution must minimize administrative effort. What should you use? A. Azure Automation. B. Azure Policy. C. Azure Virtual Machine Extensions. D. Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Correct answer B. Azure Policy. Explanation. Azure Policy can automatically deploy required extensions to Arc servers. This minimizes manual onboarding work. Question 23. You have an on-premises Active Directory Domain Services (ADDS) domain that syncs with an Azure Active Directory (Azure AD) tenant by using password hash synchronization. You have a Microsoft 365 subscription. All devices are hybrid Azure AD joined. Users report that they must enter their password manually when accessing Microsoft 365 applications. You need to reduce the number of times the users are prompted for their password. What should you do? A. In Azure AD, configure a conditional access policy for Microsoft Office 365. B. In the DNS zone of the ADDS domain, create an auto-discover record. C. From Azure AD Connect, enable single sign-on SSO. D. From Azure AD Connect, configure pass-through authentication. Correct answer, C. From Azure AD Connect, enable single sign-on SSO. Explanation. Enabling SSO allows users to authenticate seamlessly using their AD credentials. This reduces repeated password prompts. Question 24. You have an Azure subscription that has Microsoft Defender for Cloud enabled. You have 50 Azure virtual machines that run Windows Server. You need to ensure that any security exploits detected on the virtual machines are forwarded to Defender for Cloud. Which extension should you enable on the virtual machines? A. Vulnerability Assessment for Machines. B. Microsoft Dependency Agent. C. Log Analytics Agent for Azure VMs. D. Guest Configuration Agent. Correct answer A. Vulnerability Assessment for Machines. Explanation. The Vulnerability Assessment extension scans VMs for security issues. It forwards detected exploits to Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Question 25. You have 10 servers that run Windows Server in a workgroup. You need to configure the servers to encrypt all the network traffic between them. The solution must be as secure as possible. Which authentication method should you configure in a connection security rule? A. NTLM-v2. B. Pre-shared key. C. Kerberos v5. D. Computer certificate. Correct answer D. Computer certificate. Explanation. Certificates provide strong, secure authentication for IPsec. They are the most secure option for encrypting traffic. Question 26. You have an Azure virtual machine named VM1 that runs Windows Server. You need to encrypt the contents of the disks on VM1 by using Azure Disk Encryption. What is a prerequisite for implementing Azure Disk Encryption? A. Customer Lockbox for Microsoft Azure. B. An Azure Key Vault. C. A BitLocker recovery key. D. Data link layer encryption in Azure. Correct answer B. An Azure Key Vault. Explanation. Azure Disk Encryption requires a key vault. The key vault securely stores BitLocker keys used for disk encryption. Question 27. Your network contains an Active Directory Domain Services (ADDS) domain. The domain contains two servers named Server 1 and Server 2 that run Windows Server. You need to ensure that you can use the Computer Management Console to manage Server 2. The solution must use the principle of least privilege. Which two Windows Defender firewall with advanced security rules should you enable on Server 2? A. The COM+ Network Access (DCOM-IN) rule. B. All the rules in the Remote Event Log Management group. C. The Windows Management Instrumentation (WMIN) rule. D. The COM+ Remote Administration (DCOM-IN) rule. E. The Windows Management Instrumentation (DCOM-IN) rule. Correct answer A and B. The COM+ Network Access (DCOM-IN) rule. All the rules in the Remote Event Log Management group. Explanation. Enabling DCOM-IN and Remote Event Log Management rules allows secure remote management. This follows least privilege access principles. Question 28. You have a server that runs Windows Server. The server is configured to encrypt all incoming traffic by using a connection security rule. You need to ensure that Server 1 can respond to the unencrypted tracert commands initiated from computers on the same network. What should you do from Windows Defender Firewall with advanced security? A. From the IPsec settings, configure IPsec defaults. B. Create a new custom outbound rule that allows ICMPv4 protocol connections for all profiles. C. Change the firewall state of the private profile to off. D. From the IPsec settings, configure IPsec exemptions. Correct answer D. From the IPsec settings, configure IPsec exemptions. Explanation. IPsec exemptions allow specific unencrypted traffic. This lets tracered ICMP packets pass while keeping other traffic encrypted. Question 29. You have an Azure virtual machine named VM1. You enable Microsoft Defender Smart Screen on VM1. You need to ensure that the Smart Screen messages displayed to users are logged. What should you do? A. From a command prompt, run winrm quick config. B. From the local group policy, Modify the Advanced Audit Policy configuration settings. C. From Event Viewer, enable the debug log. D. From the Windows Security app, configure the virus and threat protection settings. Correct answer, C. From Event Viewer, enable the debug log. Explanation. Smart Screen activity is captured in debug logs. Enabling this log ensures Smart Screen events are recorded for analysis. Question 30. You have an on-premises server named Server 1 that runs Windows Server. You have an Azure subscription. You need to onboard Server 1 to Microsoft Defender for Cloud. What should you install on Server 1? A. The Azure File Sync Agent. B. The Microsoft Entra Provisioning Agent. C. The Device Health Attestation Role. D. The Azure Connected Machine Agent. Correct answer D. The Azure Connected Machine Agent. Explanation. The Connected Machine Agent onboards non-Azure servers to Defender for Cloud. It enables monitoring and security integration. Please revise full PDF 2 to 3 times for 100% success. Check the description for the PDF download link and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for upcoming episodes. Thank you.